On today's Newsmakers, we welcome Rhonda and Jason Halbert, who join us to talk all about their new audiobook. It's called Caretaker. It is a supernatural thriller. It's all about breaking generational curses. They're going to join us to talk about that audiobook starring Kelly Clarkson and many others, as well as their Christian faith and how they navigate working in Hollywood. With no further ado, here are Jason and Rhonda. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. A lot to talk about. This is a really unique project. We're going to talk about the audiobook of Caretaker, but let's actually talk about the book itself and the concept. Jason, I'll start with you. Where did this concept for Caretaker originate?
That's quite a story, but we've both been in the music industry for 30 plus years, and writing a book and being authors was never on our bingo card for sure. We went through a lot of family trauma starting in 2019, from cancer diagnoses to losing lots of family to battles with dementia to losing our home, etc. Went into some traditional therapy to try to work through that, and it wasn't meeting our needs. And so we had Amy Grant on the Kelly Clarkson show where I work, and Amy came on to perform, and we went out to lunch afterwards, and I'd never met her before in that context. And we started talking a little bit about it, and she recommended a therapy called Saraset. It's a non-invasive brain echo therapy that helps calm your brain so it can process trauma. And I was a little skeptical, but my son did it first. We were just desperate. Then my wife did it. Then I did it. And I say that to say that within one day of that therapy, all of a sudden, all these ideas started just gushing out of my head. And we live in Nashville and LA. And so on the way to the studios every day, I would call my wife and we would start brainstorming, bouncing back and forth. And we thought we were writing a TV show or a movie at first. And a friend said, "Nope, write the book." And so that's what made us start writing the book.
Wow. I have about 3.5 hours of voice memos that actually encompass the entire book from beginning all the way to the end, which is a trilogy. So we do know how book 2 and book 3 are going to work out as well.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay. So Rhonda, for you, when it comes to Caretaker, for those who don't know, I guess, what would the general sort of elevator pitch for the book be? And again, we're going to get into the audiobook, but what would you say to them to get them interested in the project?
Oh my gosh, Jason's so much better at the elevator pitch. It makes me nervous. You take the elevator pitch and then I'll jump in afterwards because he's so good at it.
Yeah. A family moves from Boston to a small town in New Hampshire, and they move into an old house with a caretaker, and we don't know if the house is trying to kill them or save them. And the lines between the supernatural and natural are very blurred. It's a cozy thriller.
Yes.
That was a really good,
I know.
Elevator pitch. That was really good.
Got it memorized.
Do you want to add anything to that, Rhonda? Is there anything you'd want to say? But that was pretty good. I mean, that made me.
No, he nailed it. When you say elevator pitch, he's the guy. I'm kind of lengthy in my description, so I let him do the short.
When it came to putting together a book like this, Rhonda, the details, the creativity, what went into coming up with the themes? Obviously, when you're dealing with inspiration from real life things you've gone through and you're putting it into fiction, that's a big process. A lot goes on there.
Yeah, but I will say that we've had a lot of life experience that most people would not believe. And so we had a lot of content to draw from. And so it was really about narrowing down our experiences that we felt like helped elevate the story. And then, of course, these are not one-to-one ratios. These are elaborated, exaggerated, just to kind of, build the drama and help push the story along. But we actually had a lot of content to pull from for ourselves. So that part wasn't really too hard. The hard part, I think, to me was, first of all, I'm dyslexic. So even thinking about writing and reading is just like torture for me. As I got older, I've worked on those skills and have gotten better at it. So the idea of trying to write a book was very, very daunting. So I had to get past my own fears, my own struggles, and find my workarounds of how do I do this. Jason is what we've called, a friend of ours kind of put the term to us, and we have adopted it. Jason's the wow and I'm the how. So he's the big dreamer, and he can basically throw out all the creativity, and then I just have this natural ability of sifting through and sorting it out and piecing it together like a puzzle. That's more of how my brain works. And so getting past my fear and doing what I know that I am good at, that was probably the hardest part.
Yeah. Well, the audiobook too, because so you obviously have the audiobook, which has an amazing cast of people who have come together to bring this to life. What made you want to go that route with it? Because that's a full, I mean, audiobooks are almost like, audio movies now. I mean, that's what they've really become, and it's blowing up. And this is something that people are becoming more and more interested in, which before you even answer is kind of funny because it feels like everything just comes back in a cycle. It's like back to the 1930s again, right? Like we're listening to podcasts and we're listening to audiobooks, and these are all the things that people did before television. And yet
Yeah.
here we are doing this again, which is amazing. But talk a little bit about why, Jason, you chose to go that route with a cast and build out Caretaker in this way.
Yeah, it was actually out of inexperience. I'm an avid reader. When I'm on the road touring, I probably get through a book every day or 2 days. Like I've read my whole life. Never in my life I listened to an audiobook. And some of our closest friends were like, "We're not going to read your book. When's the audiobook coming out?" I'm like, "What do you mean you're not going to read our book?" Like, they only listen to audiobooks. So I started doing a little bit of research, and this was probably 2 years ago. And I know now that multicast and like full immersive is definitely on the way more popular. At the time, everything I found was mostly just single narrator, and the thought, our even though our book comes from a very heavy traumatic place, the book is actually supposed to be a fun read.
Mhm.
For me, it's like This Is Us meets Stranger Things, and Rhonda brought the This Is Us, and I brought the Stranger, and we and so to trust a narrator just to add all that in my mind, I just couldn't imagine that. So I pitched to Rhonda, let's see if we can get a cast. Let's have music. Let's have sound effects. And she's like, "You're crazy. That's way too much work. You don't have time for that." And I'm like, anyway. So
But we're doing it. Yeah.
we, we went after our, very little resources, zero connections. We just dreamt of everything in the book. Was like, even songs and music we put in the book were just music that meant a lot to our family. And so when it time to cast the book, it was less important for me to imagine which actor would be the best voice for this, as it was, these are people that inspired our lives. We wanted them a part of the project. And so we reached out through, Googled managers, agents, reached out to our Dreamcast. Two of them we had relationships with, obviously Kelly Clarkson and Charles Eston. But the rest of them, the first response back was either we don't do audiobooks, or we've never, or send us your book. So we sent the book out, and every single person that we reached out to said yes, which was just amazing.
Wow.
Once again, I want to say he's the wow. Wow. That's how it got done.
It's interesting because a book like this appeals to a lot of different types of people, people of faith, people who aren't people of faith. Talk a little bit about who this book is for and what maybe a faith versus a non-faith audience might find inside the book.
I actually think it appeals to faith and non-faith. It's so much history in it. It's got references to ancient cultures, and actually, so we sat down and had dinner with Eric Avari, who does the voice for Marshall, who is the main caretaker in the book. And Eric said the same thing: send us your book, then I'll consider it. He read the book. He invites us to dinner. We sit down with him, and this is the first thing he wants to talk about. He's like, how do you know about this culture? And I said, well, I don't know. I just did my history. I did a lot of research, and I find this culture to be very interesting. And it turns out that he comes from his ancient past comes from this same kind of culture. Me not knowing what his history was, not knowing what his culture was, and I actually wasn't referencing his culture, but he identified with it. And that's when the light bulb went off to me of, this really is for the general masses. You can pull from it what you see and what you experience. I didn't necessarily write for his culture, but he identified with it and was drawn to it. So it to me, it's like, it doesn't matter if it speaks to your faith or if it doesn't. I think the general public will find bits and pieces in there. There's a modern day family that we talk about the struggles. It's a real struggle, and it's lots of families that struggle with what some of these characters go through. So I just feel like there's enough in there that it's really for the general masses, and it's for entertainment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the two of you have been in entertainment for a long time. I mean, you both have done a lot in entertainment, and you have obviously a strong marriage, and it's just interesting because when people are in entertainment, I always wonder, or in media, like how does that work? Is it difficult? What are the sort of challenges? How do you keep things together? And so, I know these are big questions, but I think it's fun to talk about. So, Jason, what has that been like for you? Just keeping your head on straight while you're in such an interesting industry.
Yeah, it's we made a decision. I've known my wife since I was 8 years old. I don't know when she first knew me, but I definitely knew her at 8 years old. And we started dating young. We got married at 18, and my father was married over 10 times in my life, and so I swore
Wow.
that when I got married, this would be the one. Um, and so we made decisions very early on. When I moved to Nashville in '93,
Mhm.
within 6 months, I got a job touring with DC Talk, my first band ever. And we were 100 dates plus on the road. And we saw very quickly that there's no way our marriage could be sustained under that lifestyle. And so, whenever, skipping a bunch of stuff, when Kelly Clarkson asked me to tour, the first thing I said is, I can't go more than 3 weeks without seeing our family. So, um, to her credit, allowing our family to be on the bus, but to our financial burden, flying my wife and kids out, we made a conscious decision to keep our family together. And I think that's been a part of it that's paid off. And being married in the creative, and like she said, how and wow, we are so different. We've experienced the supernatural in many different ways. Our faith, even though we grew up in the same church environment, our um, capacity to hear and understand God is very different, and that's all incorporated into this book. So I don't know the success of it other than we are deeply rooted in our faith as a marriage, and I think that's been everything.
Well, and Rhonda, I'll come to you here on this, but obviously, not that you need to be rooted in faith to have a strong marriage, but I think obviously faith, it being the centerpiece of everything, when you put it at the center of your marriage, it's what provides health and stability for a marriage, for family. And in the industry, it is very, very difficult to have those things, even when you do have faith. So the fact that you guys were so committed and did that is really powerful. Rhonda, I'd love to hear your perspective on this because obviously, I know you homeschooled your kids too, so you were super active doing that, and one of the hardest jobs and most rewarding jobs in the world.
Yes, and amen. Yeah, so I have to give not only Miss Kelly Clarkson a lot of credit, but also Jason a lot of credit. When he sets his mind to something, when something's prioritized, he sticks to it, and he put family first. And that really is what made the difference. It takes the effort of him saying, no, this is important to me. This is worth fighting for. And like he mentioned earlier, we did pour a lot of finances into that so that me and the kids, not just me, but me and the kids could travel. So my kids have been all over the world. And we incorporated our homeschooling with that. They would take their workbooks with them and they would write their essays and papers on the airplane and get all their homework done on the way there. And then we would go and see Brussels, or we would go and see England or Ireland. And in the meantime, teaching them about British history, or, anything that we could incorporate to make it part of school, but also part of our lifestyle, part of our family. And it took a lot of financial sacrifice to do that. But I believe it was absolutely worth it because here we are 32 years later. And I will admit we are kind of an anomaly in the entertainment industry because of it. But it really took a lot for Jason to say, no, my family comes first. And then he went to his boss, and then she graciously was like, yeah, whatever you need. And she loves and adores us. And she was just like, yeah, whatever you need, bring the kids. I don't care. I love family. So I think we just really were blessed by a great husband and a great boss.
I love that. And when it comes to the projects you do, like Caretaker, music, being in entertainment in different capacities, which you both have been. How does your faith motivate you? What role does it play? Are there things you have to say no to, yes to? I mean, when you talk about hearing the voice of God, does that guide you where you're going to go in the industry?
It's a really interesting question. This is a much longer, deeper conversation, but from early on, in our minds, we don't separate the secular and the sacred. So to us, it's never, it's all and it's nothing at the same time. And so, our faith is such a deep part of root of our lives that even when I'm thinking about a project or thinking about something, it's never a question to me of, is it this or is it that? It just, the things that I'm naturally inclined to are just naturally a result of who we are anyway. And so I don't feel like we can be steered wrong in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing, and that's how it should be. I think sometimes we overcomplicate the way we answer that question.
Yeah.
Wherever we are, whatever industry we're in. But here's the thing: you have this amazing audiobook, and where can people go if they want to get Caretaker and they want to hear this and hear this incredible cast? Where can they go to do that?
It's easy. It's rjhalbert.com. And so it's out May 7th.
Yep.
Awesome. So exciting. Congratulations to you both. And we appreciate you coming on. Would love to have you back again.
Awesome. Thank you for having
so
us.
much.
That's all for today's Newsmakers. Make sure you head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel and cbnnews.com for more of the news you need to read. We'll see you again tomorrow.